Are we recording?
Yep.
We're recording.
Sweet.
What's up, everybody? This is Barry. This is the Borderline Hostility podcast. With me today, my main man, D.
What's up?
My boy, Will.
Hey-o.
And my boy, Rocky in the back. He's licking himself, I think, or taking a nap. I can't tell what he's doing.
He's dreaming about licking himself.
That's what he's been doing lately. D, what you been doing lately?
Been playing a couple games. I finally knocked out Mega Man Legends 2 on emulation, which was what a PlayStation 1 game that back when we lived together, fucking PlayStation 1 days, I played the shit out of, and then my memory card got corrupted, and I basically threw the game out. So I finally got to play through that and beat it, and I've been playing, kind of taking a note out of Will's thing, playing old games. I started playing Dead Rising again, which is an Xbox 360 game, and it's actually on Steam. And man, that game actually looks modern, like running in 4K on a PC.
Jeez,
pretty impressive. And so I've been playing that, and I always liked that game. It was a great game.
Well, what you been up to?
I've been listening to... I listened to Guns N' Roses, both Use Your Illusions this week a couple times.
Nice.
2 was always... I could never find it anywhere when I was a kid, because it was... Columbia House only had the first one. So and what I was telling you all before we recorded, I've been replaying Symphony of the Night, the Castlevania game. And there's a crazy fucking thing in that I saw a YouTube video because I'm a dork and I watch speedruns of video games.
Nice. I like this.
There's a certain part of the game where you have to go through this cave. You enter it as a dog. Then when you get to the other side, you turn to the back and you go the other way. You don't do anything else. Then you hear this whooshing, like it sounds like wind coming through a window, and it's this crypt that opened up, and once the game flips over, you play it one way, and then you think you beat the game, but you find it's only halfway because they just flipped the castle, and you play it upside down, and there's new bosses and new enemies, and the caves are on both sides. You do that trick both ways, and it's amazing because you get the two greatest items ever. One, it's a blade that turns all the enemies into diamonds and jewels and stuff like that you can sell, because currency's a big issue in that game, and the only way you get is you have to either get bags of money where you have to kill enemies and sell jewels to the librarian. It's a really weird game, but and the other thing is you actually get life when you get struck by lightning by the bad guys. They're the two greatest things ever, and they're items that I always imagined. If I could create this, if I had any say so in the creative process of this game, I would have these two items, and they've existed now for 20-something years, and I just found out about them yesterday. Fascinating.
So, Will, that game's crazy because so when I played it late. I played it a couple years ago, and I guess it sounds like very much a playground game, right? So a lot of secrets, all kinds of stuff. If I'm remembering correctly, I didn't get the castle flip because there's a particular item you need to get it to flip. So when my game ended, I think it went back to I was in the castle, but it didn't flip. Something wacky happened to mine. I don't know if that's. I got it online because I was I heard this thing flips over. I want to see how in the world. I mean, genius programmers with expert level design can make a masterpiece, but you literally made a masterpiece, then flipped it upside down and made another masterpiece. So I really wanted to play the whole entire game straight through. But it didn't flip for me.
A Link to the Past?
Yeah, when it goes the time.
Yeah, and you go to I guess you go to the future, don't you? And it's well, I guess it's the past. I don't know, whatever. But you go to, it's for the most part the same overworld, but it's very different. Yeah, was that a PlayStation 1 game, Castlevania?
Yes, it came out. It came out a month before Final Fantasy VII, and it probably would have won Game of the Year if Final Fantasy VII hadn't come out.
I mean,
and then people were also in the 3D. That was 3D time, right? So like, game comes out looking like 2D. I mean, it was still, universally loved, but I think it would have been bigger had it came out early on in PlayStation life cycle, where like it was still cool to play 2D games. You didn't have to be in 3D anymore.
Now 2D side scrollers are coming back.
It's crazy to me, dude, that you never played this, because I guess I always think of you as a Metroid guy.
Yeah.
And Metroidvania is the term people use to describe a lot of the newer games that are a combination thereof. So I always assumed you were a Castlevania fan too. But
yeah. Some of it, like I think we talked about in one of our game episodes, but like the jumping is just awful in the Castlevania games, like the original ones at least, where it's like you kind of jump a direction, you're forced into that direction. I mean, I guess it's realistic, but like the jumping, the movement, and the stairs and stuff, it's all kind of sloppy and not actiony, I guess you'd say. But the that being on PS1 title, it kind of goes back to what we've been trying to convince Will into getting a Raspberry Pi, where you can get a little like $35 computer basically that you can load up with emulation and play like everything from like PS2 and down maybe.
I've got a 3, and I think 4 is out. Maybe 4 plus, or 4B or whatever. I don't know what that can do, but I know the 3 is like a high-end Pentium 4. So you're talking like a 20-year-old hardware, but it can run everything. I've seen Dreamcast running up on it.
Yeah. And I think the 4 is actually a pretty significant boost. One of the biggest things is it has a lot more memory, which has always been kind of like a limitation, I guess you could say. And with the 4, you can buy like much higher memory amounts, but it's also a lot more expensive, which kind of defeats the purpose. But I think it's like $35 for a 2 GB memory one is like kind of like that sweet spot that.
I needed to ship mine to Will so he can play around with it, because it's set up. He's got a PS3, so I need to ship it to him. He can just open it up, turn his pair his controller, and see all the stuff I've got on there.
Yeah, and play like every game, every PlayStation 1, and every N64 and Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis game ever made, pretty much.
It's amazing. Catching up on some Atari games. That Barnstorming, the little jet that has to go in between the buildings. I need to get some Black Widow on there. That's my jam too.
I remember you let me borrow it when I took a work trip, and me and my boss and a couple of girls went with us. Were like just crowding in the hotel room playing the games on it and stuff. It was pretty sweet. It's
definitely a jam tournament, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not that, but yeah.
What's up, Will?
No, just like you all talking about Atari. Do you all have a favorite Atari game?
Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know why. Like I remember fuck, that wasn't Atari. Never mind. Shit. That wasn't television. Atari was River Raid. That game was awesome.
Yeah. That's a good one. Like I've split that, I've split down the middle between Keystone Capers and Pitfall. And I think did y'all ever play Keystone Capers?
I don't think so.
I know I've tried it out, but I can't picture what it is anymore.
Well, the thing, Barry, it seems like it would be something that you would fawn over, because you play as a Keystone Cop, like those old serials where they get and the whole thing is there's 4 floors, and you have to catch this guy. He's a stereotypical criminal. He's wearing the black and white striped jumpsuit. And he's just running from you, and there's shopping carts coming at you. You got to use elevators and escalators.
I got to check it out.
It's silly, it's funny, but and it's the same game. All they do is just speed it up, and they speed it up to the point where you can't. There's no way you can win. I mean, Angry Nerd did a new video where he's talking about games, and he talked about The Legend of Cage, and he was talking just about how there was no endings to games back then. Yeah. You play for high score.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how impressive it was. Like you had to keep your Nintendo on for months at a time to show your friends the high score.
Yeah, I hated the. It's like I'm not sure if the other ones do, but like in Mega Man 1, you had a score, and there was like things that would drop off enemies that give you score points, and it's just like so pointless. Like I never saw the point of that stuff. But Atari. I'm not sure. We're about to segue away from games soon, but Atari. I really loved. There's the one where you shot like you had the missiles drop. Was it?
Missile Command?
Yeah, Missile Command. And there's actually a really good Star Wars one too. It's like Attack of the Death Star or something. But I had a friend, and I was gonna say you all should feel jealous of me, but I guess I was really jealous of him. I had a friend who had a relative, like an uncle or something. I swear, like he worked for Atari or something, because he would just get all these hand-me-down games, and he had like a Tupperware container probably of like 50 or 60 Atari games. And I remember there's a few that were like awesome, and he was like, "Yeah, these are unreleased." And these were like games like will never get released, and they were like so freaking good. Like I just thought of that. I'm gonna have to like contact him and be like, "Do you still have all those Atari games?" Because it was crazy what he had.
Pay for college now with the archivist, making sure everybody gets those games out, lost levels, stuff like that. I've been doing. I don't know if I talked about this last week or not. The Hellblade game, Senua's Sacrifice. I think I mentioned playing it, but
you mentioned it in the chat, but you didn't. Yeah, we didn't talk about it.
I got to finish it, and it is it's a breathtaking. It's a beautiful game. You feel for her, and she's got a. I mean, like I said, she's mental illness to the max. I mean, she's hearing voices, talking to herself. She carries around the head of her lover, and he from time to time, she takes it around. Her entire goal is she takes the head to reunite it with his soul, because the brainstem is like the seat of the soul. So she's carrying around this head of her lover, hearing voices, seeing all kinds of things. And like I said, they brought in psychiatrists, psychologists, all these mental health experts to help them fix. Like it's got great 3D sound, so like you'll hear voices traveling around you and all kinds of stuff. Great game. And then I also beat something else this past week. I'm currently playing. Finally, all the way through Super Meat Boy. So much fun. And then also picked up. I enjoy it, dude. It's fun.
It is fun, but man, when you get in some of those later levels, you're just like, I hate life.
I'm on World 5 now, I think. So I'm like, I got a world left, and I've not went to the Dark World, so I'm still like halfway through the game, most.
Wait till you beat it and you start doing the what's the chick he's trying to save?
I can't think of her name.
When you start doing her levels, like. You'll just hate life.
Well, that has that great thing where they show like all your fuck ups.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and the thing is, like, that's the greatest thing ever. They did that with the Mario Maker games. Like when you play levels, and it's so funny just watching how many people fuck up at the same spot. Or if you keep fucking up at the same spot, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it different this time. And then your fight or flight instinct kicks in. You're, oh shit! And you end up you do the same fucking thing.
And the soundtrack on Meat Boy is so fucking good. Like every world. But the one thing I want to mention real quick with where he was talking about the scene where you died. I remember reading a cool story where it was one of the racing games. I'm not sure if it was Gran Turismo. I don't think it was Gran Turismo, but this guy wrote the story about how like him and his dad played this racing game, or he would like watch his dad play this racing game or try to play with them like when he was a real little kid, so he couldn't really play it well. And it was so like his dad died like of cancer or something like that when he was kind of young, and so like 10-15 years go by, and he finds that game and he gets back out and starts playing it, and he finds like all of the ghosts of his dad in there, like the ghost races where his car's in there. And so he's like, what's so awesome is I go back, I could race against my dad again.
That is totally cool.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? And then last night I picked up I'm always a year behind, but I picked up NBA 2K20. And the reason I picked up 2K20 was I've been trying to get into the WNBA. I traveled last year in the fall, and I think caught a couple games at the hotel. I was just, watching some TV. I was like, I'll put some on. And I really got invested into it. I'm like, I like this. But the problem with picking up a sport is the fact that you don't know the players, you don't know what's going on. So I was like, I'm gonna buy 2K20 will play through. You can only play through a season. You can't do franchise. There's still a lot of limited things in 2K20. 2K21 apparently is a lot better, and they've actually like spent the time and effort to make it like the boys game. But I've been playing some games of that, getting my ass kicked, getting absolutely destroyed. Even like a lower setting. Just I cannot do the freestyle that you have to do on 2K games where you like push left and your head goes this way and you're like, dude, spin. It's impossible. I can never get open. So I'm learning slowly.
What was it? 2K1? Is that the one we played a lot?
Yeah, we played. I don't know. We played
2001. It's like,
2K1.
why do they need to make it more complicated than that?
They need to do simulation in arcade, like setting. I think they used to have that, either them or Madden, and you'd always like you could set how realistic you wanted it or how bonkers you wanted it.
You need to find one that's cross-platform and online co-op that we can play again.
Well, I picked it up on Steam.
Old Russell Lee Hunley and Stink Peter.
Stink Peter.
A couple others I probably can't mention.
The knee is a giant, and you as like the smallest person in the world, like that can dunk.
It's like got like 100 for speed. It was great when I was like my normal height, but super fast. So I could dunk, and like back then the animations for dunking was like the same no matter what height, so I just kind of float.
Yeah, you just keep floating
unnaturally up to the basket.
So stupid. It was so bad, but it was good. So, Will.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of what we've been doing this week, we've been watching some nonsense on the news. The Million MAGA March happened.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like
so interesting.
No, like the press secretary that Kaylee, what's her name?
McKenna, hey he or whatever.
Yeah. She said it was 1 million people, and there's no that was. There's no way that was a fucking million. If that, like, you know, when somebody on Twitter said, like, if that was 1 million, then Biden must have won by 4 billion votes. Then, if that's what, like, you know, if that's what 1 million looks like, and like it was so ridiculous. And I don't know if you guys I followed it all day. I couldn't get enough of it yesterday on Twitter. I kept hitting refresh, and it was so funny. Like, Alex Jones was there, right? And and there's a circle of Proud Boys, all wearing like bulletproof vests, and there's this ridiculous one where like this guy's got American flag on as a cape, and he's got Donald Trump boxer shorts on, and he's got like a night mask on that says "Make America Great" and it's a half American flag, and it's got the blue line down the middle of it. And it's so fucking funny, and it's just so ridiculous. And then a video, they kept showing Proud Boy initiations. Do you all know about this shit?
No, but
Okay. Gavin McGinnis, the guy who started Proud Boys, he had like 4 things of the initiation. One was the first thing you have to renounce, like, you know, something, and talk about your pride in the male chauvinist of the United States of America. The second thing, I think, is you get, like, you know, basically you get circled by other Proud Boys, and they start punching you, and you gotta start naming cereals. and so the third thing is you get a tattoo, and the fourth one is you have to get arrested for some kind of like assault charge, some kind of thing. All right, now I might have to find you the video, Derek, so we can splice it in. It was the funny, because, like, you know, just imagine like 4 45-year-old guys that, like, you know, like that, like their idea of relaxing is like having a polo shirt on, and they're standing around another guy, and they're just politely punching him. I mean, just like the kind of punch that, like, you know, how you would, like, you know, punch like a buddy in the arm.
Like
and they're doing, yeah. And like the guy's like, what? Wheat Chex, Sunny on Cheerios, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and, like, you know, and he gets to 5, and they all start cheering, but it's the most pathetic fucking thing in the world. It's so fucking funny. And these are the guys who, they were chanting in Charlottesville, "The Jews will not replace us." And if that's the example of the superior race, like, you know, every alien on the planet should want to come to Earth and just beat our ass. Because it's so fucking weak, guys. It's so fucking funny.
so something that you mentioned that caught my attention was the crap. What was I gonna say? Son of a bitch. I guess I forgot what I was gonna say. I did pull up the initiation and it's pop culture trivia such as the names of 5 breakfast cereals, etc. You also can't masturbate, so I guess we can't be proud of those, gentlemen. No, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask this. So why is it that the right can only wave flags, or why do they feel the need to wave flags? Because everybody you see on the road has the giant American flag. But like, if I put one on my house, you drove by my house, you'd be like, "Is Barry Republican now?" You know what I mean? Do you am I in the same thinking that you guys are? Like, if I see someone with if I put a freaking flagpole in my front yard with a flag, am I going to be synonymous with Republican? And right?
I'd say more than likely.
I think what happened, and it happened probably after 9/11, and patriotism ended up was equal to or greater than nationalism, and because there's a Republican in office after 9/11 and everybody got behind them, they said hey, we're all America, we're all united, but it was completely bullshit because that went out as soon as Obama got elected. But no, the thing is that's actually pretty deceptive marketing on the part of Trump. We give the devil his due, because he always makes the attacks on him seem like you're attacking America, which is brilliant on his part because you see American flag, you automatically just assume. If I'm behind and I see a guy in a truck and he's got American flag decals in his window and bumper stickers, I just assume okay, this guy's packing a gun. He's got a fucking Bible and he's listening to Kid Rock.
Yeah,
and he's looking for an excuse to shoot somebody.
I think it's where the Republican side preaches patriotism so much, pretty much what Will's saying. And so they took that as I have to prove my patriotism, where I think the vast majority of Americans, not just Democrats, are I don't need to blatantly wave a flag to know that I'm
patriotic.
Patriotic. And it's kind of same somewhat with religion. It's some people feel like they have to go to church, and the shutdowns affected churches, closed churches, and some people are think they have to go to church, and I mean, if you can't believe and worship and live your life as a Christian without attending church, then there's something wrong with you.
But I just thought that was funny. When Will was talking about the guy draped in the American flag and the Trump boxers and everything else, I thought about that. Did you guys see? I couldn't tell if it was a view, if it was the color of the video, but the videos of Trump's hair. Did anybody catch that?
Where it's real gray now.
Yeah, it's it's just faded. I couldn't tell if it was a video or if it was actually his hair, but everything I'm seeing on the media outlets is oh, he's packing it in, he's giving up, and everything's falling apart. And that picture made it look like he's kind of giving up on life. I just didn't know if that was a real thing or what. Is he going to concede ever?
No. Let me pull up his Twitter account, because I was reading about my mom. We were making fun of it earlier, if I can find the exact quote. But basically he where's it at?
Well, where he admitted Biden won, but then he said I could see nothing.
Yeah, well, here I'll read it verbatim if I can find it, because I mean, I read it. My mom thought I was making it up. I go, Mom, no, that's what he really wrote. And okay, we got his Twitter account.
Isn't that everything? It's no, you're pulling my leg. I mean, even some of my relatives that are huge Trump fans, and I'm he said this. No, he didn't. You're just making that up, and that's too crazy. No, he fucking said it.
Okay, here's his quote. He only won in the eyes of the fake news media. I can see nothing. We have a long way to go. This was a rigged election. He's like, he capitalizes things. I was reading them. It made my mom laugh. Sorry.
So going back to our last conversation past weekend, I gave my opinion on what was going to happen. And we literally just watched the Million Mega March where thousands came up and was protesting. I'll double down and say that there will be bloodshed where there's going to be 30, 40,000 people in D.C. the day that he's supposed to go out. I bet
there was bloodshed with this million.
Yeah, I mean,
I looked it up. They're saying it was up to 100,000. Like they're not saying it's anywhere close to 100,000. They're saying that like it was definitely under 100,000 for how many that were out in this million march.
But if that's where we are now, in 2 months we're on the verge of Inauguration Day, and he's not conceded, and he's got his minions working for him, his all of his cronies out there, like 100,000, 150,000 people show up in Washington and like stand in front of the White House. Is it crazy? Is it plausible? I think it is. I think it's very much so.
Will the left storm the White House?
Well, I don't think the left will, but I mean, I don't know what happens. I mean, all he has to do is get inaugurated, and he doesn't have any power anymore. So then Biden can literally go, "All right, boys in green, go get them," and plow through those American citizens if they need to. If they had,
I don't know what would happen. You could say that they're just saying this now because it's a safe thing to say, but the heads of the military have said they're not gonna do anything or get involved because they're like, this is a civil matter, not a military matter. And like I think it's like supposed to be like, you see some other countries that would do it, but I think that like our constitution or whatnot is different. But when it's all said and done, if it comes down to it, yeah, maybe they will get involved.
Yeah, or just like local armed force, some sort of armed guard, National Guard.
I think if he refuses to leave and concede, I think they should handcuff him and drag him out of the White House in front of all the cameras on the front lawn. I think they should make a fucking spectacle out of it.
I like the idea that they handcuff him, and then while live on TV, his hands, because they're so small, he's able to just slip out and try to like run away as hard as he can. You know, he's still like, he's a big dude, so he's kind of like slowly
weird,
jogging away.
He's got that like weird forward gait of his like top half of his body where he leans forward like a centaur. They should let him run for a little bit before they tackle him, and just make it like a Benny Hill thing where they keep letting him up. So
Yeah, just keep running around in circles. Put some handicap like fighting smoke. So Giuliani's in charge of the legal process concerning the election. So it sounds like he's just gonna fucking lose this then, because Giuliani
is an idiot.
Fumbles more than an armless man.
I think it's better to say that Giuliani throws more fumbles than Brett Favre.
Oh my god, you and your Favre. He's a gunslinger, all right.
Nope. Try just unplugging your mic and plug it back in. Holy testicles. That was loud.
Had a little technical difficulties there, but we are back.
We're back.
So I was asking Will his thoughts on Giuliani being in charge of the legal process. Surely that's going to work out great for Trump.
What's amazing is how far from grace.
It's so hard to say.
How far he has fallen from grace since 9/11. Because he was probably the most beloved politician after 9/11.
America's mayor, man.
Yeah, he looked like he gave a fuck, and I can't figure out like why he's doing this to himself. I mean, like if he would have died after 9/11, he would die like a hero. And now he's just every day he lives, like he's getting further and further away from that hero image, and you just see how much of a fuck up he really is. I mean, not that he was great to begin with. There's a bunch of books I've read. like like that were written like before he was like the mayor, and it was always something dirty, and it always had his fingerprints on it. And he was supposed to be the guy weeding out corruption, but and it's weird that like he's got some kind of security contract right now with some kind of like identity protection thing, and the spokesman fell for the Borat gag. I mean, like he's grabbing his dick in the Borat movie.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like he's not just like like when he says he's adjusting it, like the microphone or tucking his shirt or whatever. He's not tucking his shirt in. That's rub, squeezy, squeezy, trying to like get some circulation down there so he can perform.
Trying to wake something up. Yeah. It's weird because I remember around 9/11 stuff is like he seemed like an all-star. Like there was, I mean, I guess like he really hadn't done much in the public eye. So I don't know. It's just funny how that works. Like the perception, but now like we said, as time goes on, you see how like dumb he basically is, and how incompetent he is, and how incapable of being like a decent. I mean, he's the lawyer that like accidentally blurts out you're guilty in the middle of like your trial.
I'm not saying my client didn't do it. I mean, hell, look at him. That motherfucker's a molester. But we got to prove without a shadow of a doubt that he did something wrong.
I mean, he's basically done there. There's like been a few times where he's ousted like things they were trying to hide about Trump just because he can't stop talking.
Yeah.
What? There's a podcast I listen to. It's called the Empire Files, and it's a brother and sister that do it. It's Abby and Robbie Martin, and they're both. They radicalized me, like like as far as like my politics and stuff like that. And Robbie made a series of documentaries, and he's talking just about like how Giuliani like was all. It seems conspiracy stuff, but like if you look at like his research. Giuliani got away with a lot of shit after 9/11, like involving the anthrax attacks and all that stuff, and he owned like several companies that cleaned up anthrax, like contaminated places and stuff like that, and he made a lot of fucking money, and it just seems odd that like America's mayor profited off of like the horrible tragedy of 9/11.
Yeah,
but like he continues to this day. I mean, he's made lemonade, like he's always working. I don't like him, and I think he's a horrible person. But I mean, he's always hustling. Give the devil his due. I mean, like and all those guys. I don't know. I can't figure out like why Trump would put that guy in charge. I like just like
after all his fuck ups.
What? Because is it just because Giuliani's never said anything bad about Trump? Is that the only qualification to stay hired?
That's all it takes.
Well, I mean, like Pence is in charge of the pandemic board or whatever it's called.
Well, the thing, what was funny about that is like five of his staffers got it. So it's like it's almost like hey, Mike found COVID. But his job wasn't supposed to find it. He was supposed to find a cure for it.
Speaking of COVID, we're standing at 11 million positive cases, 245,000 deaths. And we've not all got together with our families yet. We have 2 weeks to do so.
For Thanksgiving, you mean?
Yeah. So are we going to, I mean, we're looking at, what's, I'm trying to think of what the number is here.
Well, November 1st, America had 70,000 positive COVID tests. Yesterday it was 190,000. So like probably Sunday today the 15th, it'd probably be almost 200, maybe 210. So it's tripled in 2 weeks. And we also had a big super spreader event happened 12 days ago with the election.
Yeah.
Like all those assholes that went to vote because the mail-in ballots were no good. Like all those people probably we're probably gonna have a big super spike Tuesday because it takes about
Yeah.
2 weeks gestation.
Well, yeah, you have all the people that refuse to do mail-in ballots. Yeah, the people that and I'm not faulting some people that just want to vote in person. That because I think you have people on both sides that want to do that. Not so much that they thought the mail-in ballots were bad, but you had generally Republicans that closed down polling places, reduced polling places. So then you had even more people crammed at certain locations, and then on both sides you had Biden and Harris fans celebrating in the mass out in the streets, and then you had pro-Trump fans, whatever it is you want to call they're doing, like rioting about there being fraud or stolen election or not some. So yeah, you got all kinds of mass groupings of people getting together.
So, where you guys? What's where do we stand on the vaccines? That news came out. What 90% success rate of the vaccine, but we're still probably. I mean, Q1. I mean, maybe Q2 before we get our hands on it. So, like we, as in like normal people.
Yeah, quarter one of next year or quarter two.
Yeah.
So,
So if we're heading, go ahead, Will.
No, I heard that they had 50 million vials of it. Excuse me, it was 100 million vials of it. But you get one shot, and then you have to have a booster shot shortly after it.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, if 100 million doses, that means that only 50 million people are going to get it. So that still leaves about 280 million Americans that aren't going to be able to get it yet. Like,
Yeah.
and the thing is also, the thing that we're going to run into is this is the fastest they ever came out with a vaccine like this. So, and they're saying it's 90% effective, but that doesn't mean like it might cause a whole bunch of other shit.
Yeah, that might have short or long-term side effects.
Yeah, and the thing is, and there's already a significant portion of our population that for some reason, like 20 years ago, Jenny McCarthy thought that vaccines caused autism, and for some reason everybody believed her, and all these scientists were like, "What the fuck? She doesn't have a degree."
It's what was it, the Dr. Fauci thing where it's like, I think I saw where it's like, yeah, I went to school for this many years and I've been in medicine for 50 years or whatever. Like all these years I've done all this stuff just so I could get rednecks to wear masks. Like that was his end.
Yeah, the conspiracy theorists behind that. It's ridiculous.
Well, one of the things, have you all ever met an anti-vaxxer?
Not in person.
It's amazing. Because where I work, I run into a bunch of crazies overnight, and I've actually had flat Earth conversations, and I've had anti-vax conversations. A couple weeks ago, I found some crazy right wing Illuminati propaganda in the store. I'll have to take a picture of it to send it to you because I've actually thought about framing it because they hid it on a shelf, so like you could just And I was sweeping and I looked down and I'm like, what the fuck's that? And it's just all about how communists are trying to take over everything and how universal healthcare is just deployed to get us all in the system. And I'm like thinking like, what in the fuck is wrong with these people? They actually
you're already in the system.
Like, yeah, if you're in the city, you're on camera and you're in the system somehow.
I'm sure they're on Facebook too.
Yeah. But anyway, but it's funny as shit. And then another thing that, where was I going with it? Oh yeah, anti-vaxxers. The worst thing that can happen to somebody that's stupid is that they think that they're smart, and I find that usually smart people they're always questioning whether they got it right or not, and stupid people they'll scream the answer. Even if it's wrong, they'll keep screaming the same answer. It's like frog. No, it's not frog. Frog. Is it frog? Frog? And like, no, that's not the answer to it. Is it a frog? You're telling me it's not frog. And like, they're convinced to try to convince you that they're right and that you're wrong. And that's how they are about vaccines. And I can't. And I've heard all kinds of things where don't vaccinate your babies because all they're doing is just taking pieces of other dead babies and injecting them into your baby. You guys heard this shit?
I have not heard that.
I'll find these memes for you, man. I'm not very picky when it comes to like the Tinder thing. If somebody likes me, I'll give them a shot. But that's a deal breaker for me. There's a girl, she was absolutely adorable. She was beautiful. She was funny. I went to her Facebook thing, and it was all about like being anti-vax. I'm like, fuck, I can't do this. I can't hide this. I can't hide my disgust for these people.
Well, I mean that idiocy and lunacy bleeds into other things too. It's not like they're just dumb and crazy about that. It's like that means they're dumb and crazy in general. They're dumb enough to believe stuff like that. So it's like it'll bleed into all kinds of other things that will be a issue in a relationship.
Logic and reasoning downward spiral that they can't climb up out of.
It's like I posted on Facebook one time. I can't remember what the second part was. But the first one was like, I could be dating like the most like beautiful, awesome girl in the world, and if we went to the grocery store and she didn't return her cart after we left to like the cart return, like it's over.
Just push her in front of moving traffic. Yeah, get over. Yep, I feel that.
Are you all going to get the vaccine when it comes out?
We'll see.
I don't want to be a guinea pig.
I always want like a third arm or, heart palpitations, stuff like that. If there is side effects.
If the side effects like a bigger dick, then like you're going to have like super spreader event lines of men.
I've never seen any side effects on medicine that do that. It's weird.
Because it would become medication and be like, oh, it's a bigger dick medication.
You just call it vitamins.
Yeah, I bet you there'd be no fucking dudes that were anti-vaxxers when it came to that, though.
I need to find this thing, and I don't know if it's a story. It was one of those Reddit stories, but I need to find it for Will, where it's like this guy bought a gas station penis enlarger pill pack, and it came with like 20 pills or something, and you're only supposed to take like one or two, and he took all 20. And it wasn't so much that like he had penile problems. Like I think it did whatever he wanted, or it was erection, not penis enlargement. But because he was going on some date or something, but he got like just all kinds of awful side effects and sick and shit.
Oh gosh.
Well, we sell extends at the place I work at, and it's funny because they they come 5 to a pack, and like there's dudes that will come in there. And like while they're paying me, they're popping them out of the thing, and you're only supposed to take one. And they got all 5. They bought a Red Bull, and that's what they're washing it down with. And and we always just think we're gonna read about that guy in the paper dying, his heart's gonna he's gonna have a stroke or a heart attack, and he's just gonna have a massive erection that's not gonna go down. They're gonna have to build a special coffin for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think they're more likely, especially with those energy drinks, like turn into the Toxic Avenger or something.
Oh gosh! So we've talked a good amount about the news this week. I think it's time to jump into a little murder, and I say that because we're going to cover H.H. Holmes this week. And before we say anything, I know we made the joke before, Derek, not John Holmes, H.H. Holmes. We could also do a show on John Holmes, I'm sure, too.
Oh, God. Yeah, I guess, H.H. Holmes, because we kind of talked about, interest in, like, crazy serial killer stories and stuff like that. And I think H.H. Holmes is probably one of the most interesting, obviously in a bad way. We're not saying we glorify these people or think anything they did is good. They're awful human beings, but he was a guy that, like, I don't know if you could say he was a genius. Like, he did some things that were really smart, but also some really dumb things. It's kind of the akin to I used to work with a guy that did all this stuff to avoid work, and like he would basically make it look like he was there, and then he was like go home and then come back in and clock out. And I had a boss who was like talking about how smart he was. It's like no, it's like he wasn't smart just because he devoted all of his brain power towards skipping out on work doesn't make him smart. Is a smart person would have done better. It just happened to be what he did. The rest of us actually show up at work and try to do our job. And so this guy, he had what they dubbed the murder castle, where he built like a large, I think it was like a 3 or 4 story building, and had rooms dedicated towards captivating, killing, and cleaning up dead bodies, stuff like that. He had like chutes in the ground that you like trap doors you could open up to drop people down that would go down to the basement, or else he would take the bodies down the basement and he would burn them up, I think in a kiln or like a furnace or something like that.
Yeah, his own little crematorium down there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
he also had acid.
Yeah, and acid, and he would
Blind
also
pit.
donate, or he would sell the bodies to like universities that they would use for their like education and stuff like that.
Well, that was a scam that. Where's it at? There's a really cool movie called The Doctrine of Devils, and it's based on a famous case, and like the guys' names are Burke and Hare, and like, they would go and they dig up like body. They started off digging up bodies, and selling them to like scientists so they could do scientific experiments. But then like these assholes just got the idea like, hey, let's just skip the middleman. That digging stuff sucks. Let's just kill hobos and hookers, and like and we can make a kill. And then ironically they made a killing. So I wonder if he got the idea from that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think when did they exist? Like when were they in operation?
About 50 years before Holmes.
Okay, because then I know that you kind of get a little bit of that. I remember seeing it in Val Luton's Body Snatcher, but Stevenson. I don't know if he mentions if that song is in his book, if it's in his story or if it's in the movie itself. But like, yeah, they mentioned, I forget who is it. What's the first guy?
Burke and Hare.
Burke and Hare. Yeah. Because they do this. They do. Karloff does a song about Burke and Hare. But yeah, this guy there is some genius level to this man. He goes through and learns chemistry and anatomy. Does graduate college at a time when, not everybody was going to college. But yes, the biggest problem with him, the part where he lacks intelligence, is his belief in his charm and his confidence man skills. Like, he is a con artist. Yeah, his con skills are legendary in terms of, you talked about the murder house. So, you talk about how how do you design something that's that massive that does what it does? Well, obviously you screw your contractors. You only give them certain parts of the job. So like you have contractors coming in doing certain parts of the job, and they're like, what's the rest of this? Like, what's it all? What's the big picture? And he's just like, doesn't matter. Just do your thing, and I may pay you. I may pay you after that.
Well, he had a brilliant scam. I'm sorry about that, Derek, but he had a brilliant. Well, not really brilliant. It's evil what he did to these poor contractors. Because they want their fucking money. He goes, well, I'm not paying you. It wasn't satisfactory work, which sounds suspiciously like somebody we might know as president. But he go, oh yeah, well, okay, well, you guys go undo your work, but if you damage any parts of my building, I'll sue you. Mm-hmm. And it's just like so these poor contractors just got screwed, and that's something that's amazing to me too. That like, because we were talking about the dead bodies thing. You think after that Burke and Hare incident 50 years before that, that they would be like, okay, here's rules worldwide. Like, you have to get people to donate their bodies beforehand. and like there's got to be records of it. You just can't. Because think about it, man, there's two homeless looking guys covered in fucking dirt. Go, hey, we found this body in the graveyard. Give us $50 so we can get some alcohol. And they were like, all right, here you go, thank you, but let's bring us some more. We're cool with it. And I understand, like, you got to experiment to, like, advance science, but how are people cool with this stuff?
So we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Sorry.
I guess we're explaining, while we're covering Holmes, but the nicknames: the Monster on 63rd Street, the Torture Doctor, the Modern Bluebeard. Life began for him in 1861 in New Hampshire as Herman Webster Mudgett. Cute name. Can't imagine why you'd change Herman Webster Mudgett. But I guess at 17 is what I've got. He gets married for the first time. And I say first time because he not only marries in multiple times or has multiple wives, but he also has multiple wives at the same time. He's got women all over the place. This guy, when I say con man, he has covered all of his bases. He screws his contractors. He screws women. I mean, this guy is as slippery as it gets.
He had all kinds of alias names and stuff like that.
Yeah. Goes to school for medicine in Vermont, I believe, but leaves there and heads off to the Michigan Medical School. Graduates in 1884. And around this time, I guess, he's married to his first wife, Claire, is what I've got as notes here. She moves back to New Hampshire because he apparently is abusive, becomes sometimes violent with her. Some of the stuff that with Holmes, and I was talking to the guys earlier before filming, was it's so hard. He is our, well, and there's even rumor of him being Jack the Ripper, but he's our Jack the Ripper. There's so much fact or fiction with him that you don't know what's real and what's not. For someone that turns out the way he does, his childhood, there are stories where he leads a pretty normal childhood. And there's other stories where, well, he's twisted heads off bunnies, or he's dissecting cats, or, I mean, they're all over the place. And it's so hard around this time, to trust even journalism at this time, because journalism,
sensationalizing.
Everything's sensationalized. So you don't know. I mean, you don't know. Even when we get to his death and his confession, like, it's still like, was that even real? Is it questioned? But he goes off. He gets married. And y'all jump in here anytime. He ends up, let's see. So he goes to school, like I said, for chemistry and anatomy. He changes his name to H.H. Holmes after college and after moving to Chicago. He has led a long list of scams, talking about moving bodies, insurance scams. Like, there's just all kinds of stuff in this guy's past. But he gets it. Go ahead, Will.
Well, no, just the insurance scam. Like it's weird that I don't know if he was the first person that did it, or if he was the one that just capitalized on it the most. But he would just take dead bodies and just say, "Hey, he insure them," and say there was somebody else, and just collect the money. And that's something else I can't figure out. Like, when I was talking about turning the professors turning a blind eye to the dead bodies before, where the insurers just go, "All right, well, yeah, but who'd make up that their brother died in a fire? Here's his body." Who would fake that? I mean, that had to, I don't know. That's why, it's amazing just how just a couple people can just ruin things for everybody else. That's probably why insurance is so fucking sketchy nowadays. They go out of their way to try to make sure, do whatever they can to not pay you, because all those people that early on that were figuring out loopholes and how to screw people over, they're still probably still trying to make up for that.
Well, think about detective work before forensics, and this is still at the very earliest stages of modern, well, at least American forensics. If someone comes to you with a body in the back of their wagon, and they're like, "Yes, my brother Phil, He died. Here's that policy that we had on him. I mean, what is your? I mean, this is what 30 years after, like, kind of well-known photography. I mean, so you're not carrying around photo IDs for sure. You may have a family photo, but like, how do you even prove that that was him? Dental records, I think, are still not really used. Certainly not DNA. Certainly, I mean, how do you? Yeah, it's like it's genius. It is genius that you pull off this fraud, but it's so weird also that they have an insurance company. They're like, let's do this thing where people pay us money, and if someone dies mysteriously, we'll pay out large amounts of money, and this would be a good business. And clearly, this dude's like, this is the worst business idea ever because it's so easily beatable.
I mean, they're obviously making money because they were staying in business. So,
well, yeah. I mean,
so
I guess they had lawyers
with the cons.
Yeah.
Well,
so anyway,
well, the thing is also, like, that's something I was curious. Like, James M. Cain, like the guy who wrote Double Indemnity and The Postman Always Rings Twice. He had to have heard about like this because all his novels are about murder schemes involving insurance. So I wonder if he used H.H. Holmes, like, as a reference in this thing.
Insurance background, maybe.
Well, because I mean, like, Double Indemnity, the movie came out in like 45, and I think the novel came out in the 30s. So he had to, and all this stuff was happening when he was a kid, probably. I mean, like, it had to be, like, because back then, like, the newspapers, there was like 8 or 9 national newspapers per state, from what I understand. And sometimes they do 2 or 3 editions of the newspaper a day because the newspaper was big business back then. Because they had no foresight to, like, think that, like, maybe, like, all these trees won't grow back as fast as they're cutting them down. And, like, and Hearst, who is the basis of Derek's favorite movie, Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, I was just going to say, so he goes to Chicago now as H.H. Holmes. It works at a drugstore. There's stories that even he has killed the drugstore owners. Like, I've seen the drugstore owners have been killed by him. He bought the drugstore from them fair and square. It's all over the place. I don't know what you all have seen, but
yeah,
he ends up buying the drugstore. And is this the plot of land that becomes the castle, or is it it's across the street? Do we know? I can't recall either, but he's made a name for himself in this neighborhood, the neighborhood of Inglewood, in that subdivision. He's working at this drugstore. Yeah, he secures the lease in 1888 on the building across from the drugstore. I know. I guess it was always people did call it the castle, just the castle, maybe because of those external looks. But yeah, so Holmes decides to build up this thing. I've got a note here: constant turnover of builders. Some of the stuff we already talked about. These were incompetent contractors. So that's how he'd get out of paying them. No one knew how the house was laid out except for him. The first floor, he had actual legitimate businesses that were being ran out of it. Pharmacy, jewelry shop, barbershop, restaurant, blacksmith, a little bit of everything. And even the third floor, there was some, they had rented rooms in there. They had offices, I think Holmes's bedroom. But the second floor is what he gets known for. Apparently, there's 35 rooms. As we talked about, killing chambers, doorways that lead to nowhere, a very disorienting setup, the trap doors. Something that I thought was just absolutely insane was the rooms. Because I guess the rooms would already have, it wouldn't be weird to run gas lines to your rooms because you'd have gas for your lighting.
Yeah.
But he had rooms just with no lighting, and they were just getting. I mean, they had lighting, but they also had little gas lines that just led out to open space, and he could lock them in and pump them full of gas and
knock them out.
Yeah.
Didn't he have a he had a
Well,
vault too, right?
So what do you?
He had a vault, like a
bank vault.
yeah, like a bank vault that wasn't used for anything but his own shit. So I think he killed one of the people in there. You should put her in the vault and just let her expire, basically.
Yeah.
Well, he also had a room that was had asbestos all over it. Asbestos is fireproof, and he would just basically incinerate people and burn them to death. He was a weird serial killer because it didn't seem like he would do the same things. He gas people, he burn them, and like a reference to our horror movie episode. I think we said something about having a vat of acid in the basement for House on the Haunted Hill. He actually had that, which is something else that I've thought about, like after reading about it and hearing about it, the audiobook, is like, no, I don't know where you get acid at, and like I can't imagine somebody like a couple years ago. Here's a side story. I went to I was gonna shoot a low budget movie about a guy committing suicide and hanging himself.
Right.
All right, I went to Home Depot to buy some rope just as a prop, and a friend of ours was gonna be this. Anyway, the movie was gonna be about him not being able to figure out something and him hanging himself at the end. So I got the side-eye glance when I went to Home Depot to buy a couple feet of rope. Because they probably thought, like, hey, this crazy motherfucker's going to commit suicide. Now, and I explained myself, and I thought I was pretty clear about it. This guy back 120 years ago was able to, like, go wherever you go to buy acid. I don't know where you buy acid. And go, yeah, I need a couple 100 gallons of acid. Why? Oh, just for my basement. And they're like, all right, how do you want us to deliver it? And just like, they're all cool with that. And that's amazing to me.
I don't think anybody cared back then. Like there was less like I think there was less information about like nefarious things done with stuff, and I think people were just like, "Oh, you're gonna pay me? Okay, here you go. Have whatever the fuck you want."
I mean, yeah, it's like before 9/11, you got guys who are like, I just want to learn how to like fly a plane. That's it.
Or like,
now if I did that,
a bunch of fertilizer.
Yeah, there you go. So I got him here, and I'm bad at pronouncing his name, but is it Petezel?
Is that his partner?
Yes.
Like I couldn't figure it out either. Benjamin
Petezel. Petezel. Anyway, he moves to Chicago in '89, and he's got a kind of a similar situation. He's not a freaking insane maniac murderer, but he's a small time crook. He's done all kinds of different things, side jobs. He's one of those guys that's like, he's just a small jobs guy. A little bit of everything, does a little bit carpentry. And I think that's how he meets Holmes. I think he does some carpentry work on the castle. And from there, him and Holmes kind of bond. And Holmes kind of uses them for like I guess a little bit of everything. And they're doing some shady shit, and all of a sudden, and the castle's being built. 1893 comes around, and it is the World's Fair, the World's Columbian Expedition World's Fair. 20 million people from all over the world are coming in. 600 acres is what I hear. 600 acres is what this fair is kind of set up in, and of course, inside of this or near it, I guess, is Holmes's castle.
Yeah.
Holmes's thing is, hey, I'm gonna rent rooms out while this is going on, make some side cash. Everybody around him seems to agree that's a good idea, and you get people from all over the world coming in, pre smartphone, pre phone. I guess you've got Morse code. You've got what's the why can't I think of the old transmissions? Will help me out. The Telegram. Yeah, telegram.
Yeah.
So I guess you had a telegram. That's really as far as it went. So,
telegraph?
Yeah, telegram. I mean, the telegraph. I guess the printed out telegram.
The thing that they have in the westerns. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got that. That's going to be if me and Dee are two cousins coming from England to the World's Fair in Chicago. That's the only way me and him are going to message back to our families that we're safe and sound.
Yeah.
we just know we're going to take a barge, some sort of boat over seas to America and go to Chicago. So once we get here, we're fair game. People don't know. We're not checking in. So these people,
You haven't planned
20
out
million people.
where you're going to stay.
Yeah, 20 million people are just wandering around, coming in for this thing, and we check into Holmes's castle, and may not check out.
I think I read that he would go to like bars or kind of congregating hotspots, and he would, find the people that are wealthy, especially like these affluent, like older ladies that don't have any people with them, and just be like, oh, I got this place you can stay. It's awesome. And so he would kind of get his tenants that were ideal to his whatever he was plotting. But go on.
Yeah. So you had various individuals, and of course there are people that I guess that did stay there and had no problems, had no issues.
Yeah.
But a decent amount of them ended up being his victims, and like we talked about, between gas rooms, fire rooms, disorienting hallways, traps, and chutes that go into the basement. Very easily able to get away with a lot of this stuff. I'm trying to think of. So yeah, some of the it says in the special I watched, Holmes had controls to gas, would lock them into rooms and gas them, and could watch them die. So I don't know if he had little built-in like little peep show holes or how that worked, maybe behind glass or something. But I mean, definitely when you've got a body count like he does, you definitely enjoy doing this and watching the life fade away.
That's the one thing I wondered about him though, because I feel like you have serial killers for different reasons. You had, is it Ted Bundy that was like obsessed with his mom or something like that?
Ed Gein.
Yeah.
Ed Gein, yeah, okay. But I feel like I don't think that he particularly enjoyed killing or watching the killings. I think that he was completely immune to it. That it didn't affect him, and he had no emotion about it negatively, like he felt bad about it in any way. But to me, I think that it was just a means to an end to get him more money, or I don't even know if he wanted power. It just seemed like everything he did was about getting money or scamming people out of money and stuff. Because he's getting these wealthy people to try to get their riches, and I don't know. He just
not to get too far ahead, but he only lived like 37 years. And he packed a lot of crazy shit in 37 years.
Yeah. He well for himself in that short of time.
Well, and then I started looking up statistics, and they said like the average serial killer starts doing it when they're about 27 and a half. Somewhere there. That's usually about how long. Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's later, and stuff like that. And it's hard to attribute a body count to him because there's no official tally. And he only got convicted of that one, the guy's name we can't pronounce.
Yeah.
Petezzel.
Pretzel.
Yeah, Pretzel.
Petezzel. Is that his name?
Yeah.
But, yeah. And the thing is weird that, like, the World's Fair, did you all read up about that at all?
I did not know.
There's the Great Chicago Fire that happened a couple years before that, and they put a lot of time and effort into rebuilding the city, but nobody wanted to come there just because, like, big fire and a lot of people died and stuff like that. So they said, okay, well, they put the World's Fair that, like, that's the reason why, like, he was successful. Like, he saw it was coming. So he, like a land prospector, he bought up the property and he built up the murder castle. Which, it's smart.
The thing is, like, you're talking about him, like, conning the contractors, and I can't imagine he did it to all of them. But however old he was, like 30 or early 30s or late 20s when he built that, it's like, how many people are that successful where they at that young of age where they can buy a plot of land that large in a city, in a big city, and then build that big of a building. I mean, he built, well, you said it was 3 stories, and the top floor had 30-something rooms. That's a humongous building. I can't imagine
So,
how many millions that would cost in today's money.
I mean, you're talking about him having that con artist background. Like,
Yeah.
we don't really know when it starts. You know, if he's in college, and actually starting to kill people, or at least conning people,
Yeah.
he can amass a decent fortune from it. Especially with the whole insurance scam. I mean, that's a top. I mean, what, a couple of those and you're set for life. I would think, depending on how big the policy would be.
Yeah, true.
So if he's pulling that off, no telling how rich he got. And I don't know much about this neighbor. I don't know Inglewood at all. I don't know, like, especially in 1886. So, like, is it a good neighborhood? Is it cheap real estate? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if Chicago's large enough in 1893 to get the World's Fair, I can't imagine it being that cheap. But so that, the World's Fair lasts until the end of October that year. He's just all over the place. Like I said, he's married to somebody else. He's got another person. I hear a story. He gets a woman pregnant, promises to marry her as long as he can perform the abortion on the baby that they've made together.
Yeah.
And ends up killing her. It's one of those anecdotes about him. But, like, as you say, like, I think a lot of it is, is the money aspect. But I think there's still, I mean, you don't go through college, in medical school and not be having that curiosity of how things work. And so I think that's part of it as well.
It just seemed like he never killed randomly. There was always a con and money out of it.
Yeah, it seems like the money was first and the death was usually second, because, to save himself from getting caught or for getting the insurance money, whatever.
And he also, like, I don't know, it's like a lot of serial killers have, types of people or something like that. And I mean, he killed men, women, children, really, really young children. Obviously, maybe a unborn baby in that respect. He was just a very high level of evil. And obviously, I mean, there was something missing and physically missing in his brain that, allowed him to do these things and not seem to be affected by them at all.
I mean, no ounce of empathy in this man's bones whatsoever. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you treat people the way he treats them? So Petezel, being one of his buddies and someone that he works with quite a bit, and actually is close with the family and everything else.
Yeah, you didn't mention that Petezel had a wife and 3 or 4 kids, I think.
I've got them as 5 kids.
5 kids, okay.
And this is the part where I've seen different stories and I get really confused on what the hell happened.
Yeah.
But I guess what I heard was Petezel began drinking, and he had some issues. Holmes had issues with him, Petezel possibly running his mouth.
Well, he's becoming a liability.
He's becoming a liability. And Holmes comes up with an idea, an insurance policy idea where they're going to swap a body with a cadaver, yada, yada, yada. But these guys are traveling all over the place.
Petezel himself.
Yes. He's going to, because I guess he's going to hide him away for a bit. The policy will be cashed in by his wife. His kids are taken care of. Everything's good. It's a genius idea.
Well, I think my reading of this one, I didn't mean to cut you off, Barry.
Oh, go ahead.
But like the thing I copied off the internet said that like it was the scheme was going to take place in Philly, and Petezel set himself up as an inventor under the name of B.F. Perry, and he's supposed to be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion.
Right.
And and I guess that they put some effort into this and established that Petezel was this guy named people knew him as B.F. Perry, and Holmes was supposed to find a cadaver, and I guess Holmes had enough of his shit and he just skipped the middleman in that part and just like and used Patizzle himself. And that's something else in my reading in the audiobook. I don't know how Patizzle didn't see this coming. Like he knew what a piece of crap Holmes was, and he knew the kind of schemes that he was doing. Why would he think that he would be safe?
I think it's you see it all the time. You have people that they think that I'm different in their eyes. Like I won't become the victim because they like me or whatnot, and eventually you just get in their way, or their natural inclinations take hold. It's the whole what is it, it's like the river otter taking the snake across the water, the Aesop fable, I think it is.
Oh, you was a snake when I picked you up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Some animal that takes the snake.
Oh, it's in my nature.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not gonna bite you. You take me across the river. And it's okay. Then like halfway across, the snake bites him. And he's like, what the fuck? And he's like, it's my nature, man.
So he ends up killing Patizzle as B.F. Perry, as Patizzle. Again, we keep screwing this name up. Patizzle.
Just call him Pretzel.
But you know what? The 120-year-old asshole that's dead. He probably should change his name something simple like Smith or Jones.
I don't think anyone's gonna complain if we get
inconsiderate cocksucker.
Pretzel's name wrong. He's a scumbag himself. So
fuck him.
So something else we talked about early forensics. So I guess he chloroformed him, and then I don't know how he did the explosion. He did some sort of.
Yeah, he got him really drunk and chloroformed, and then I think he just kind of set fire to him.
Yeah, I guess. But they were actually able to find chloroform in his stomach, large quantities. They couldn't tell any other stuff, or they just knew that it was.
But they found that really as an oddity.
Yeah. But I guess here's the part where I get confused on. Maybe you all can fill me in on this. So from here, how does he do the whole Miss Patizzle and the children? I get confused on how all happens here. So he's traveling around. They're in Philly. He has the insurance policy, I guess, or whatever the case may be. Do the insurance company ask him to provide? Like, does someone have to come up and verify the body or something? Like, why does he end up getting the kids?
I think that's what it was, and he brought in Pretzel's actual wife, and she identified her own husband. Like it wasn't.
I think he used their children as leverage to get her to do it.
Or no, Nick got one of the daughters to do it, didn't he? Yeah, he got one of the daughters to identify the body.
Wait.
I'm pretty sure.
But I guess at some point in time that he's got custody of like 3 of the kids.
Yeah. Well, the wife hadn't heard from Pretzel in a while, and months or years or whatever. And she and so he went to her and he's like, oh, hey, let me take some of your kids to see him. Like, you can't come see him now because we're doing this.
That's right. He's in hiding. That's right. I forget about that.
So he's let me take the kids. And so I think this is like the evilest thing he did was he takes these kids that grip around him, probably had some kind of relationship with them, and just kind of kills them. I think he kills a few of them at one point, and then the third one at a different point. So I think there's like 2 brothers that he killed when he was renting this house out, and they found him like buried in the backyard or under the house or something like that.
So are those the 2 kids? This is once again, it could be the propaganda, the sensationalism, but I see there's a drawing of him putting these 2 kids in a chest and running gas. Like I guess he hooks up a hose to the gas lighting, and he runs it into the chest.
Yeah.
And just once again, and then of course cuts up their bodies and buries them.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that after, he was on trial and they started finding out like all the things he did, I think they did dig up the remains of those 2 kids. At least that's what, the news from back then said.
See, the notes that I have, which this one I got from Wikipedia, so I don't know exactly how accurate it is. They said that they found like teeth and bits of bone in that house's like in the chimney. And also, like, it's weird too. Like, it also says the same thing that there are human remains that were discovered in the cellar. And like, it looks like there's a detective that named Frank Geyer. Like that,
That's
do you all have that part?
so. Here's the part that I, in one of the things I read discusses in detail, and the other one not so much. Is they bring up Hedgepath, um, and I guess while they're trying to um, pull another con, I think they are. This is when I think I get maybe this is after Petezel's been killed, but Holmes is in St. Louis and tries to get this drugstore owner to sell him his property. Um, and I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing something fishy. A guy turns him in, and he goes to jail, and he meets Hedgepath. Um, and they talk about an insurance idea or some sort.
No, he spills the beans on the Petezel thing scam he's doing.
Okay. All right. And then what's supposed to happen? Because Hedgepath gets pissed at
Well,
some point in time.
he promised. No, I think Hedgepath put him in contact with people to help us scam.
That's right.
With the promise that he would give a certain amount of money. It was like 10% of the money he was going to get. It was nothing, which this plays into, I think, his dumbness, where some of his cons, like he's like, just pay them people, and he would have gotten away with it. And so, yeah, he promised Hedgepath money and never delivered, and then Hedgepath went after him, basically.
So is this where Geyer is called in? I believe this is where Geyer starts investigating.
Yeah, maybe.
Because go ahead, Will.
No, this is the part that creeped me out the most, man. Because have you all seen the movie Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman?
Uh-uh.
There's a scene that kind of reminds me of this shit.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, like well, because he's got some leads and they're digging in a cellar, right? And they're digging for hours and hours. And the thing is, like, you don't really know exactly like what the best case scenario is, because part of you wants to think, okay, well, we're digging and hopefully there's no dead bodies. But like, but if you don't find dead bodies, you have to keep digging, right? So that's the worst case scenario and the best case scenario aren't that far off from each other, right? Either way, you're digging a lot. And then like it's got a quote from Detective Geyer, and like I guess like when they started hitting pay dirt, so to say, like it said like the deeper we dug, the more horrible the odor became. And we reached a depth of 3 feet. We discovered what appeared to be the bone of the forearm of a human being, and that's where Geyer then went to Indianapolis, where Holmes had rented a cottage. Holmes was reported to have visited a local pharmacy to purchase the drugs which he used to kill Petezel, and repair shop. All right, guys, we might have to cut this out because I think I hear a loop back or something like that.
Now, I know what you're talking about. I'm looking at the same notes. So, yeah, and this is where I guess so. Geyer's just on his tail, right? I guess he's just popping here and there.
Yeah.
And Geyer's slowly trying to follow him. But I guess it's at this cottage is where he finds the teeth and the bone.
Yeah.
In the Holmes chimney. So, so I guess this is that part. This is one of the kids. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the other two, he would later to confess to murdering Alice and Nellie by forcing them into a large trunk and locking them inside. He drilled a hole in the lid of the trunk and put one end of the hose through the hole, attaching the other end to a gas line to asphyxiate the girls. He buried the nude bodies in the cellar of his rental house in Toronto. So I don't know exactly if Geyer finally stumbles upon this node in Holmes's trip,
Yeah, I think that was one of the daughters wrote that. I think one of the daughters was writing letters and keeping contact, and that's how they were kind of track some of the destinations he went to.
Um, so it says, so Guy are assigned to investigate to find the children, followed Alice's letter to her mom. He found letters that Holmes never sent to Alice's mother. So, I mean, he's constantly pulling the strings for even the kids. I mean, they're like, we're going to go visit your dad, or your dad's in London now. He's safe. We're going to go visit your mom. How about you write her a letter? But yeah, it's just mind-boggling that no one sees through his bullshit. But I mean, city to city, he's got different aliases. I mean, he's just he's impressive in how he's able to pull it off.
I'd almost like to get like a big map and do have a crazy room with the strings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And try to figure this out, because the articles in that book, which I can't, if I get my Kindle open, I could find the name of it. He was, Toronto, Boston, Philly, Chicago, and I think he ended up getting arrested in Texas.
I've got him getting caught in Boston by the Pinkertons.
Let's see.
Old Pinkertons.
And I guess they're on the case because of him cheating and the insurance fraud stuff.
Yeah.
He's suspected of the Petezel murder, suspected of also killing the children. I guess it's all coming to light, and I guess the Pinkertons are working with Geyer and everything else. But I've got him getting caught in Boston in 1894.
You're talking about people trusting him. I think also, we've had all these atrocities done by serial killers and crazy people, and I don't think that there was that much of it back then. So I don't think people really thought about people like him existing. They never would have thought that he would be doing all of these terrible things, and that he would also do it to us, his friends.
Well, think about, we're all close to 40. I grew up in a time in the 80s when, where we lived, it was okay to hang out and go talk to, not strangers, but talk to our neighbors. And we knew everybody. Maybe it's because I grew up in a small country town. Maybe if I lived in a bigger city, it'd be different. But I remember a time when it was safer. We thought it was safer to do these sort of things. So you're talking 100 years prior to me thinking that. And not having cable networks telling us 24/7 about everybody that's discovered. Yeah. So I can definitely see that the people as a whole are a lot more.
You just look at the difference between when we were kids and your current kids, and then just extrapolate that throughout the years. Things are also different back then. It's I can't remember if it was on here where I told the story about my dad that lived near I think it was a coal mine or something, some kind of mine, and him and his dog went out walking around, and he found all these neat things on the ground. He started gathering them up. I think he had them in his shirt, he had a shirt, the bottom of his shirt flipped up, and he's carrying them there.
Kangaroo pouch.
Yeah. And so he gets home and he's like, "Mom, look at all these cool things I found." And she flips her shit because they were undetonated debt charges, which, it's not a stick of dynamite, but it would definitely blow a hole in you. And, they were faulty ones basically. And, back then, if he had picked one of those up and blew a hole in his chest and died, it would just been whoopsie doodle. Oh, well, there wouldn't have been a huge lawsuit and a giant thing in the paper. The company probably would have gone to his mom and it's "Hey, here's $5. Don't go. We prefer it that you didn't tell anybody." And yeah, that was a whoopsie doodle. Sucks my son's dead, but that was a big old whoopsie doodle.
But this guy's charisma is maxed out, right? So not only is he walking around with people going I like this guy. If he has the kids out with him at all, is he give the appearance that he's a widower? You have to trust this guy, right? He's got kids, and if he's a creepy old man in the corner who's staring you down as he's eating a biscuit, it's a little weird. But He's a dude with
It's
a bunch of girls and kids with him, and
Well, I found in my which I've read a handful of books on them. There's three tiers of serial killers. Like Ted Bundy and like Holmes. From what they seem like they were charming, like handsome, like they seem like the kind of people you want to be around. And then below them are the Jeffrey Dahmer and your Ed Gaines, who, like if you didn't see Jeffrey Dahmer or Ed Gein, if you didn't know what they did, they just look like normal dudes. And like I mean, nothing extraordinary about them. I mean, they don't stand out for. They're just plain dudes. Then there's people like like John Wayne Gacy is a creepy looking motherfucker. Like, and Charles Manson, even though he wasn't a serial killer, you kind of look at him, and I mean, even before he had the swastika tattoo, you're like, I don't want to be around that guy. Like, if that guy shows up at a party, like most people that have common sense are going, you know what, I'm gonna leave. and I think like, and that whole charming handsome serial killer thing, I think those are the most dangerous ones because nobody wants to believe it.
yeah. I mean, what was Ted Bundy? You still had. I mean, like he's on trial and people are believing his BS in the courts, which that's another thing that.
Well, Scott Peterson gets like he gets hundreds of love letters. Like he's still got fan mail,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like
Crazies out there.
yeah.
I think it was. I wonder if Ted Bundy took a tab out of Holmes because wasn't it when he was on trial he basically played the game like he would show empathy and distraught and shed tears like when he felt it would be beneficial to him even though he was up shit creek.
That's I don't. The thing is, like Ted Bundy was very, in my reading of him, very intelligent guy. And he's well read, and he's very well aware of Jack the Ripper. So I mean, like he had to have known about Holmes.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, because there's rumors that Holmes and Jack the Ripper were the same dude, but it doesn't seem like it'd be possible. Like because I mean, it's amazing that he got from like Toronto to Philadelphia, like like as quick as he did back then. There's no way he's going across the fucking sea back, like But I want because was Ripper before or after him?
I was thinking he was before him.
So I mean, because and I also wonder like, because how the modern bad guy are video games, and before that it was like music in the '80s and stuff like that. And slasher movies. I wonder like if they were like if they blame Edgar Allan Poe for like Holmes, because like because all his stories were about burying people alive and like
premature burial, oblong box. I mean,
Telltale
list goes on and on. Murder, death. So,
Cask of was it Cask of Amontillado? Is that the name of that?
Maybe.
Yeah. I haven't read them in a long time. It was one of those things where I think everybody goes through a Poe phase, and then like you're like, okay, well, there's no more of this shit, and he did marry his cousin, creepy motherfucker.
So I don't know where from November of '94 to July of '95 what happens in between. That's what I've got him being caught by the Pinkertons. Maybe he's locked up for a little bit, moved around, but in July of '95 is when I have the police entering the castle, is what I see, and finding everything, and they're just finding all kinds of random stuff. We talked about the sensationalism. I'm sorry, I got a cough here, guys.
You asshole.
I know, what a bitch.
Motherfucker.
Fucking Rona.
But a lot of these stories coming out of this moment right here is the make or break of the legend, right? So like someone mentioned a rope was found. Well, clearly he was hanging people. There was a lot of blood and a cut up table in the basement. must have been where he was cutting up the bodies. And of course, I'm sure they found parts as well. Sure. But I mean, a lot of it was, here's what we think happened. Obviously, he didn't get caught in the act of anything, right? So they have a set that they're looking at, and then they've got later on a written confession / storytell that he gives the Hearst papers. So they go in there. They're collecting evidence, I guess. In September, the trial starts. I guess it's supposed to start. Ends up starting at the end of October. Day one of the trial, because he's Holmes and because he's who he is, he dismisses his counsel. First day, I got this, guys. I got this.
Myself.
I'll be my own attorney. By day 3, and I'm looking at my notes here, Carrie is Patezel's wife. Yes.
Yeah, and who was her?
believe.
Who was that? I can't remember what her.
I think Carrie is. I think is the wife of Patezel. On the third day, she testifies and tells the story. I guess maybe the husband has shared with her the insurance fraud stories, the plans.
Yeah, he
because she's part of it. You know, she's part of it. You know, like the children's travel. She kind of explains what's going on with Holmes and why. She gets off the stand, and like the entire court's just in tears. Like, this guy is a fucking monster. Holmes sitting there, stone face, like, I'm good, you know, whatever. I don't have a lot of the examples from the trial itself, but I do have written down here that I guess eventually his third wife, Georgina, testifies. And to this point, maybe when she testifies, maybe she's towards the end. I don't recall, but this is the only time he actually shows emotion, and he just explodes and cries uncontrollably. Is what I've got written down here. Yeah. But what do you all remember from the trial? Like, what notes do you have pertaining to the trial?
See,
I didn't take notes because I'm an asshole. Just keep as much up here as I can.
the only notes I got about it was it was when he was talking to the Hearst paper, where he was basically just, this is way before the Son of Sam law, where like back then you could kind of profit on, like, you know, your confession. And I can't find that piece of paper. Give me 1 second, guys.
Yeah. Let's see. So I forget all the Hearst papers, what all he. But he is. I mean, he is the newspaper giant.
Hey, let's take a time out for a second.
Well, no, what happened was I was driving myself crazy because I knew I read something about Texas, and I couldn't find it in the notes that I printed out. But I found it, and I found it's on the same page as like his confession thing. It said like he got arrested in 1894 in Boston, and he'd been tracked there from Philadelphia by the Pinkertons, and he was held on an outstanding warrant for horse theft in Texas. So I mean, like, that's where I got Texas from, and you got like. That's amazing that, like, you know, like, how far of a journey was that to, like, you know, like, I mean,
by this time the transcontinental's done, so you could catch a train, but from there, if you're not showing up if there's not a depot in that town, like, you know, how are you getting there from there? And I can't imagine what type of train ride that is at this time.
I'd love to know what his finances were like throughout all of this. Like, was he ever hard up for money, and that's why he did some of these risky cons? Or was he just a scumbag that was always conning no matter how much money he had?
That's why I think we need to make a crazy room simulation with a map with this guy. Because, I mean, that's Boston to Philly back then. Like, that was probably, like, you know, like probably a 14 to 18 hour drive. But like back then, like, you know, that had to take, like, you know, about a week, like, by train, and stopping everywhere, and
Yeah, I think some of it's like travel between states took like weeks or months.
Dude, Boston's a 5-hour car ride. So I'm picturing it
oh
being.
wait, it's 5 hours from Boston to Philly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It's not
I'm
that
sorry.
bad.
Okay,
It's
It's a 5-hour car ride on paved roads through.
well, yeah. I'm saying Boston to Philly, the Northeast sector has been train heavy since the 1840s, 1850s. So like,
okay,
you're gonna be able to you're probably get there a day or two, I would say, by train. So, but even then, like from there to Texas, I mean, currently, if I jump in the car right now and drive to Houston, it's what, 20 hours? 20 hours with modern technology.
And you also have to consider that, maybe the train probably didn't run every day. It could have been, okay, he gets to this place, but he's got a week until this avenue of transportation is available to him. There's probably all kinds of delays like that.
And you mentioned, you meant that, and then like with, I don't know when like the train system itself becomes standardized, because you're talking about different gauges of track, which means like your train can't go on my track. And so you have a lot of like where people get off and like this stuff has to happen and like they have to transfer trains. And anyway, you mentioned motive, and the third option on the motive is, is the name that he's using lost its welcome where he is too, right? So like this could be happening, but he could be on the move for the fact that like people are starting to ask questions.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there as a wild guess, but
it's like the monorail episode of The Simpsons, where they can spot the guy coming in and go, "There, that son of a bitch is."
Anyway. Oh yeah, I mean maybe I mean yeah, horse.
Well, his cons probably got more elaborate and probably got more. There's probably higher stakes, higher amounts of money involved. So there's more scrutiny.
Yeah, I mean he's just marrying women all over the place. I mean, I mean you could have found a ranch widow, but yeah. So back at the trial, he's his own counsel. I mean, it goes poorly because I mean. The con man, only is as good as the con, and he's running into a wall. He's.
Yeah, I think he did a good job in the trial, but the evidence was too much.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd assume Mrs. Petezel's testimony, explaining like the whole entire process, like this was the fraud case. This is what was supposed to happen, and he ended up doing it to my husband. I mean. And I guess there's not much that he can do after a while. Let's see. So he's guilty of murder in the first degree. Oh, as we were talking too. So I guess while he's in jail, while he's being detained, and either waiting on his trial or after the trial, I don't know exactly when this happens, because the trial happens in the end of 1895. But he lives. He's not hung until May of 1896. Yeah. So at some point in time, he sits down, and I guess the newspapers have offered him a ton of money for his full confession. Because he's sitting there arguing. He's arguing his case, but he becomes guilty of murder. So they're like, "Hey, man, we know you did it. Let us know. Give us a story. Give you a ton of money. I don't know what you do with a ton of money if you're going to be executed, but."
And you have no relatives?
Yeah. But apparently he writes out, he obliges and tells all. And he's a con man. He's a charmer. How much of this is actually true? We don't know.
What I'm seeing here is the Hearst newspaper offered him a bunch of money, and he confessed to 30 murders in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Toronto. But the confession was questionable, as 6 of the victims he claimed to have murdered were still living.
I think you fucked that up.
It sucks when these people are like con men to the end. It's like, dude, just give us your story, like straight up.
Well, there's a modern equivalent with somewhat modern. Henry Lee Lucas, like he did something similar to that. He like they made 2 movies based on him, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and there's another low budget movie called Confessions of a Serial Killer, which is it's a pretty crazy movie. Hard to find though. But like on the Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer DVD, they have an actual documentary about Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole. And like and Henry Lee Lucas confessed to all kinds of murders, and like he was confessing to like murders that happened cities apart on the same day. That there's no way, and I think they just like the attention and they like somebody's listening to them, so they just keep rambling and rambling away. And I think like like with him being, this guy's clearly a narcissist and he likes people paying attention to him, and like and he's like it just seems like we talked about there's 2 types of gangsters. There's the Meyer Lansky's and then there's the Al Capones. Meyer Lansky lived to be like really old and he died quietly. Al Capone died with syphilis, but Al Capone wanted everybody to know he was a gangster. There's a lot of narcissistic con men that they want you to know how smart and slick that they are, and they're cool. He was already at the end, so he might as well make the legend as big as possible before you exit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because so he confesses to 30 killings in his confession, and I'm seeing a body count as low as possibly 9 to as high as 100 to maybe or 50 to 100 people.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, what the hell is going on? Like, how do you pinpoint exactly what this guy's done? But I guess on May 7th, 96, he's hanged, and beforehand does recant and said the confession was absolutely fake.
Yeah.
And you kind of start to think too, like, I mean, I don't know. I didn't look further. Is there an actual like, here is my letter to the newspaper? Is it written out? Did y'all see? I mean, could the paper have just fabricated this entire thing?
Yeah, I think as best as they could, they confirmed some of the killings by finding evidence, or maybe they went back to the schools where he donated these bodies, that kind of thing. So I think there was a small handful of people outside of the Petzel family that they to some degree could confirm. However good their autopsies and stuff like that were back then, or body identifications.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because my favorite part of the story is the day he got executed. And I'm not particularly a big fan of like the death penalty, but in this case, I'm kind of cold with it. Like good for him. Like when they hang you, you have to drop from a pretty decent height in order to snap at your neck, and it sounds like it didn't really work for him. So he went out like fucking struggling, and the last 15 minutes of his life were probably the most painful and uncomfortable that he ever experienced, which is good because he ruined quite a bit of families.
Yeah.
But the last part of the Wikipedia article that I highlighted was like his last request was he wanted a coffin to be contained in cement and buried 10 feet deep, because he was concerned of grave robbers. Because him being one himself, he knows how sick those motherfuckers are.
It's crazy. So, go ahead, Will. Finish. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's crazy. Doing research on some other topics we have not covered yet. But people used to collect parts. It wasn't enough. Like, I mean, when my grandfather passed, I have a sweater of his that was on the kitchen table, and he was a tobacco chewer. So he has this little cup. I think it's my sister got him this cup, and it's one of those things where you spit in it, and it's made, and like it kind of funnels and then goes back up. And if it tips, your tobacco juices don't spill out. And I want to say I have that and one of his sweaters. But like in this time, when someone famous died, if you could, people would like cut off hair, Which I mean, I've heard of that in our lifetimes. People collecting hair snippets here and there, but like body parts, like people were freaking insane 100 years ago. Not that they're not insane now, but like, man, people were just weird. Like, who would collect celebrity fingers?
I would say people are the same. It was just less taboo back then. Or now, if like some crazy serial killer dies and you go up and say, "Hey, I want his eyeballs," people are like, "What the fuck, dude?" But back then, also back then, you show up and you say, "Hey, here's $200 for his eyeballs," and people might be like, "What the fuck, dude?" And you'd be like, "I don't give a fuck. You'll never know who I am. Like, I'm from Philadelphia. I'll just go back to, this." Of course, it was yeah.
Just bizarre.
Well, but also, could you imagine just like going over your like I've got like a pretty decent DVD collection and a pretty decent like book collection and stuff like that. Could you imagine being over somebody's house and go, "Hey man, you know what I got? I got Jack the Ripper's fucking fingers. You want to see him?" And you're just like, "Okay." Look at this, man. This belonged to a king. It's his ankle bone. Like, okay, why do you have all this shit?
It's just fascinating that the customs of yesteryear.
Well, there's a great Futurama episode where Bender's robbing graves, and he says something like, he goes, I'm one skeleton short of a Mouseketeer reunion," and it made me laugh thinking about it.
So certainly this dude is not. I mean, we've got body counts higher now. I mean, I guess more confirmed body counts.
Yeah.
This guy's kind of a mystery. It's kind of hard to place him on the pantheon of like, he's the top serial killer. And there's certain criteria you rank people on, right? I mean, body count, sure, but the total apathy and the way that he would the way that he treated the human body, and not even the human body, the human mind, and how he would scam these people.
He would con people in their own deaths.
I mean, he's
like the abortion lady in Petzl.
Scumbag. Yeah, he's a scumbag.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely probably top 5 most evil people, most evil serial killers, and I mean, what he did to the Petzl family alone is unconscionable by like any standard. I feel like there's serial killers with much higher body counts that would be like, even I wouldn't do that.
like Manson's like, Rablin, and he hears about this and goes, "The fuck, man, you sick motherfucker."
It's like when DC and Marvel came together, and it was the Joker was like teamed up with the Red Skull. And then when the Joker finds out that he's a Nazi, he's like, "I'm not working a fucking Nazi." He's like, "I'm not crazy and willing to murder people en masse, but I'm not working a fucking Nazi."
So yeah, and interesting. I mean, I remember 20 years. I don't know when this book came out, but Eric Larson's The Devil in the White City, Murder, Magic, and Madness at the Fair That Changed America. Was the first time I remember hearing about H.H. Holmes. I never read the book, but the book. Tremendous bestseller, got a lot of press. Something I got to put on my queue that's already this tall. But
as far as I know, this was like huge news back then. Like it probably went all over the whole world. So you have to wonder if they're detailing a lot of these things, like especially him conning like the people that he brought to his hotel during the World's Fair. You have to wonder how that changed things. If that was like one of those things that puts things a step forward in terms of people being more conscious of their surroundings, of their livelihood. And, maybe after this, people were saying, "Hey, someone in London's like, hey, if you're going to go to America for the World's Fair, as soon as you arrive, let me know where you're staying. Send me a telegraph or a telegram or whatnot."
Yeah.
I imagine, if this story was in the to some degree the detail we've read it and went all around the world, people probably changed their the way they lived, knowing that this is a possibility and that if you didn't do this, that this crazed lunatic could kill you and dispose of your body, and possibly no one would ever know.
And that's something too.
Well-
It's shocking that I got to 100 years after the fact, I'm born, and it takes me this long to find out about the story. I grew up with Jack the Ripper specials, but I don't recall ever hearing about H.H. Holmes. And to me, like this is a nursery rhyme waiting to be written, right? Like this is like the boogeyman will come and make you go to his hotel, and then he'll fucking kill you. And, some sort of kid song that we'd have learned back in the day about this dude.
I think the way that I found out about it was American Horror Story, and every season they do like a new kind of theme, and I think it was American Horror Story Hotel, where there was a character that was supposed to be based, like all the characters were based on real life people, I want to say, and there's a character, I think it's Evan Peters that's in it, that was supposed to be kind of like H.H. Holmes, and I started looking up these people, like who are these people supposed to be, and that's, I think, how I found him. But yeah, before then I had never heard of him, and it's surprising because his story is just so awful and horrendous and scary.
Well, certainly. So I made some notes. We're not going to go over them today, but and we talked about this being, something we may do as a survey later on. Serial killers as the topic.
Yeah.
But as for America, there's all kinds of horrific murders that happen from the time Jamestown's started to before this. But definitely take a look. There's some names that definitely look up. Look up Samuel Mason and the Hart brothers if you know nothing about them. Kind of the same thing. You got like heinous crimes and a lot of body count to back it up too. So I mean, these guys were like early pirate / highwaymen that just kind of do whatever the hell they wanted and did not give a shit about people.
But also, I think that might have been like 100 years before that, though.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking like the
1790s
years before these guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's because I always thought, I mean, like what we talk about Holmes getting away with this stuff, but even 100 years later, what is the environment? I mean, like, yeah, man, I went out with like 50 people, but like, yeah, the Indians, they killed them all, and I was the only one left, and like,
they're like, oh, that was a whoopsie doodle.
Yeah, I mean, we got lost in a fucking wood because nothing exists past this line except for Indian tribes. So they must have got lost and all fell down into a ravine and splattered. I don't know, something must have happened. Like it's so crazy to think about what happened before and the stories we don't even know.
Yeah.
Holmes could have had a counterpart he could have had a counterpart in Cincinnati that was going on at the exact same time. They got away with everything.
And probably a lot of it is like, how well they tell their story. If they're like, okay, this is bullshit, this guy's done for. Or even back then, you still see it some today, but it's hard to do with all the evidence. But back then, you have people, it's like, we have a mystery we need to solve. And whether this guy did or not, he's our perfect scapegoat. So, boom, there's our answer.
Yeah, and it's a lot harder to. I mean, because to me, like as a detective, I'm not a detective, but if I was a detective, I would think like all signs point to this guy. Derek is the murderer.
Hey now.
And then my last part of homework is like, is he? Like I'm double checking everything, right? I'm making sure that nothing else could happen. But like they don't have their forensics to go on. It's a lot more of an open shut case, I feel like.
And you had that Detective Guerre or whatever it was, and the Pinkertons that I don't know, but both of them could have are trying to make a name for themselves. That could have been.
Well, Pinkertons were well known. That was a well known.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know that, but I mean, they got to keep that status going or make it better.
I'm
not saying that either one of them did that, but that could have been a source of false information. Yeah. Where they're like, well, if I sensationalize this bit or make this up, as what is happening, we're talking about them 100 and 30 years later.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that I just thought about because this happened. When did he get executed? 1895.
1896,
Yeah.
May 7th,
96.
1896.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, you know, I'm curious. I would like to know what the United States looked like back then. Because, like, you know, like there's still the Wild West was still going on. Like, you know, I mean, there was still, like, you know, like a lot of Western movies are set in that period. Like, I think the Wild Bunch is set in that period, right? But also, like, the Northeast, like, that's when, like, Jane Austen's writing her novels and stuff like that about, like, the New Yorkers, and it seems like it'd be a fascinating time of history because there's a lot of, there's I bet you if you took somebody from New York and put them in Texas and somebody from Texas and put them in New York at that time, they'd probably be thinking like, I'm on a different fucking planet.
Yeah. It's almost
we
like that
laugh
today.
about. Yeah, like look at the big city. I mean, remember the Sauce of the Pace commercials, right? New York City.
New York City.
I mean, yeah, it's a play on that and everything, but you're talking Oklahoma and New Mexico and Arizona. So a good chunk of that Western bloc are still not states yet when this happens. Utah has just passed, has become our 45th state in January of that year. So, like, I mean, yeah, the West is still kind of an untamed territory. I mean, it's not. I mean, you've got Rangers and everything else there, but you do have some reach. But yeah, it's still the Wild West. And
I mean, and you also have people die young. It's it's not. They didn't make it till Eddie. We need to investigate this. Like, oh, this guy died at the age of 45, and we don't know why. Like, he probably just had a heart attack, or
Well,
I don't think there's much worry or care about things.
well, and also like they kind of judge success, like, you know, about, like, you know, how many kids you had back then. I think, like, you know, like you were kind of a loser if you only had like 4 kids. Like by the time you're 30, it's like, well, that guy's wasted his life. It made me laugh. There's a funny meme. I have to find it for you if you want to put it in, Derek. But it was like, my dad at 27. Maybe I'll have my 4th kid, and then me at 27. If I get COVID, I'll miss 2 weeks of work.
There's a lot like that. It's like me at 27. Like, oh man, I can't wait to get out of this retail job and get my college paid off and that kind of thing. Or your dad at 27, it's like, well, I'm on my 3rd house now.
Yeah. Any more notes on the H.H. Holmes, guys?
I mean, he's the book I got. We pull it up for research purposes. It's called H.H. Holmes: A True Story of the White City Devil, and it's by Adam Selzer. And I listened to that audiobook the entire week, like leading up to this. And it was weird because I listened to it, and audiobooks sometimes put me to sleep. But then I'll wake up a couple chapters later, and they keep referring to his confession in that book. So I'm waking up and I'm hearing like the guy's reading it's really good, but he changes his voice slightly for H.H. Holmes when he's doing a quote where he's reading a thing. So I'm hearing like the strange voice reading it, like, yes, then I always had a devil in me. It's like, what the fuck? I forgot what I was listening to, and I'm like, this wasn't Phil Hendry's show I was listening to.
A recipe for bad dreams.
Oh yeah. Well, that's my own fault because I should have bought the book. I mean, it's a good audio book, and it was one of those things where I was like, I had it, and I was like, man, I really wish I had a road trip to take right now.
Yeah, and there's a pretty decent. Was it Netflix or Amazon Prime, Barry? So I think we watched the same thing, didn't we?
Well, I watched a couple things on Amazon Prime. One was the one that to me felt a little funky because like I said, it threw out some stuff in there that I don't know how accurate it was.
Yeah.
And I think Amazon Prime also had a History Channel mini series on there that I did not get a chance to watch, but looked really, really good. If I can find it real fast, just so we could share it with the listeners here.
Yeah, there was the one I watched. I think it was on Netflix, and it was kind of hokey. It was kind of low budget hokey and did some real cheesy stuff. I'm not saying any of it was incorrect. It just was a little cheesy, but it gets to the point.
Yeah. And,
did you find it, Barry?
I did not. I think the one I watched is called H.H. Holmes, America's First Serial Killer.
Yeah, I think that's the same one I watched.
Yeah, it says watch again. So that's the one I watched. And like I said, based on some other stuff that we found and stuff that we talked about today, had some misinformation, it seemed like. Another one called Murder Hotel, which is on my list to watch. I didn't get a chance to. And then the one that I was talking about that I wanted to watch, the really one that I was really pumped about but didn't get a chance, was the American Ripper. And it is a History Channel 8 episode miniseries that I might as well go back and tear into here shortly. And then Dee, just so you can post some pictures of this. So the book that Will's listening to, H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, by Adam Selzer. The Devil in the White City, Murder, Magic, and Madness at the Fair That Changed America, by Eric Larson. And then they also have someone wishes to order. It's called Holmes, A Serial Killer in His Own Words. And I guess it is a reprint of the series of autobiographical documents. I guess part of his confession / autobiography. So
I think that if you got that book the audio book that I got, it has that in there too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is, I guess it's got some stuff edited and explained, so it's kind of, here it is, plus a good review of it, good scholarly review of it. Be definitely a cool thing to check into. But interesting topic. I'm glad we discussed it. We've been on the heavy on the horror side of things, which I don't know if we just because of the world we're living in, or we just got past Halloween. But I'm sure we'll get to lighter, happier fare at some point in time. Maybe we'll do like a Mickey Mouse series next, or like Teletubbies.
That's horror.
A Barney retrospective. That'd be good. There you go.
There's a picture going around on Twitter with Barney with Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't know if we can do that or not.
Everything's been spoiled.
All right.
Hey, I've got a funny story. Well, it's somewhat funny, I think anyway. A couple years ago, when my mother was in the hospital, I'd visit her every day because she was at UK Hospital right down the road, right? Anyway, and so I'd work, I'd come home, I'd eat something, take care of the lizard, feed the cat, go see my mom and dad, right? And they moved her around, and this is when they were doing all construction. They were building the Shriners Hospital across the street, and I got lost, because it's easy to do because UK Hospital is really big, right? Anyway, and I ended up going in the wrong elevator, and I'm in the service elevator where the orderlies bring the food and stuff like that up on, and there's a lady, she's pulling a big tray of food, and she asked if I could hold the door, and I try to be nice, so I hold the door open. I let her in. She goes, "Could you push floor 2?" And I'm going to floor 3. So I pushed 2, and and the elevator stopped short, and and I helped her get the thing over the lip, and I pushed her away. She was good. The door shut, and then and the elevator corrected itself, and when it did, it caused me to fart. And it wasn't a pleasant fart. I could smell it instantly, and I was in the elevator, and and I was thinking, oh shit, oh no, what happened? Because it just the jarring got me. I don't know what it was. I get to the 3rd floor, ding, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get off really quick. And there's a bunch of doctors and nurses that are walking in as I'm walking off, and as soon as I walk away, and I did the equivalent of the walk-off home run in baseball, with the fart in the elevator. Like I hear the door closing, and they start gagging. I was never more proud and embarrassed at the same time.
It's like doctors and nurses that have probably smelled all kinds of awful things. They're like, "Oh no." That should be your weekend routine. You should visit the hospital like every weekend and just do that.
Just fart in the elevator.
Well, I did. The thing is, I didn't do it on purpose. What happened was, I don't like elevators anyway because I always feel like the balance feels weird in an elevator. It feels. I know you're technically floating, and you're protected, but just the sudden jerk sometimes gets me.
Makes you fart.
It got me that time, and and I didn't think there was anything behind it because I've been eating light because. Walking through the parking lot and walking through, you end up walking a couple miles to around the hospital, and you don't want a heavy stomach. You don't want to be eating fucking chili and fucking with Tabasco sauce on it.
So the question is, do you think that those doctors and nurses, to this day, are remember that time when that dude with the big beard, shuffled off of the service elevator real quick? It seemed kind of odd, but we had a job to do, and we got on, and we almost died.
Maybe that's the point of life. Everybody's chasing after the point of life. The purpose of life is just to make sure other people have great stories to tell their friends.
Fart on the elevator.
Yeah.
This motherfucker just we walked off and he shuffled his feet and he was in a hurry.
See, Will, that's what brings you joy. So if you're feeling down, just go to a hospital.
The thing is, it didn't bring me joy. I was embarrassed by it, but I couldn't do anything about it.
But see, it brings you joy now. So,
well, that's the thing. Whenever
you do it again, you're like, "This is great."
Well, the worst stories end up being your best. The worst things that happen to you end up being good stories down the line. It's just you gotta get through the horror of it first and put it behind you.
Now, would you think that the more poop particles are floating in the air, that we're diluting the COVID? Could you have inadvertently been saving lives that day had it occurred during COVID? You're diluting the air it's floating. The particles that are in there are more poop particles than COVID particles.
Are you saying the poop particles are attacking the COVID particles?
I think so. I think if we just walk around all of it just practically shitting ourselves, we may get past this pandemic. I don't know. I could be.
Maybe
I'm not a scientist.
Maybe they would have gotten COVID, but they were covering up their face because of the stench.
It makes the most sense.
It's like you're a hero.
Well, here's the thing. I floated this theory a couple months ago when COVID first started happening. Wouldn't it be great if the cure to COVID was crack? All these years we've talked about how cocaine and crack is a horrible thing. And then, and we find out it's got magical properties to kill COVID.
It would be amazing if it was marijuana. It's like, all right, legalization.
No, I'm talking about crack.
I know that.
Not pot. I'm talking
to smoke some crack. He's looking for a viable excuse.
Damn it. Gotta be something.
It's just a gateway drug to better cures. Is what the pot is. Yeah. Right.
Well, it would be. You all laugh now, but you wait and you see who survives this COVID shit. It's gonna be the crackheads that don't wear masks. That they have absolutely no teeth, but they somehow they're the superior race. Yep. They got that crackhead strength, 120 pound, but they're ripped. You can see all the veins.
Very veiny. Vascular.
But it reminds me of Will's fart story. If you haven't seen it, Will, as I know me and Barry have, you need to watch the movie Rocket Man with Harlan Williams.
Classic.
Have you seen it, Will?
Man, I saw. The only thing I remember about it made me laugh, was when they told him he was gonna be an astronaut.
He screams.
Yeah, and he screams like he won the Miss America pageant.
Astronaut Fred Randall.
and because I like that he's a funny actor because he's in Dumb and Dumber, and he's in the Insane Clown Posse movie.
Oh god.
But you're saying about the fart? Is there a fart joke in it?
Yeah, where they remember they're on. I guess are they on the moon or I think they're on the moon.
Yeah, I think so.
And the one guy's air tanks start malfunctioning, so they have to connect their air tanks. So they're sharing like a pipe or a tube between them. And then Harlan Williams starts farting, and the guy's trying to like keep the fart. It's like squeezing the tube, trying to keep the fart from coming over into his spacesuit, but he gets there anyways.
It's so stupid. It's so great. It's so great. I don't know where me and Derek got that, but we just that was like one of our movies for a while.
Oh, it's an excellent movie you can watch with your kids too,
Yeah,
like at almost any age.
Ari, what's funny is Ari didn't like it. She's like, it's all right. I'm like, it's fucking funny. Laugh.
I mean,
Did
how
you beat her?
long did you ground? Yeah, how long did you ground her after that?
You're gonna
You
laugh.
don't come out of your room until you think it's funny.
Butter that bacon, boy. Butter that bacon.
You should have done it. Hooked her up to a chair with her eyes open.
Yeah.
And, like shocked her every time she didn't laugh.
Clockwork Orange. There you go. I guess you've done that.
You got to condition them.
That's right. Treat them subhuman like H. Holmes would.
Yeah. Well, do you want to give us our classic sign off, Mr. Will?
I guess we're done then. All right. Well, wear a mask. Don't be a cunt.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
All right.